I'm here talking with director Lanny Zapoy, the director for The Subject. Hi, Lanny.
Hi, Kent.
So let's just start off with kind of a basic question. So I know that Chissa had written this originally as a play. How many people were in the play? Was that a 4 or 5 character play? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it was slightly different. It was about 5 people, and it was a unit set that she wrote it on. And so she never even imagined that it would turn into a screenplay until someone came to the reading and said, "This would make a great film."
So tell me from your point of view, the process of when she started making it into a screenplay. How did it come to you? How did the casting go? How did that move forward for you guys?
Yeah, I've known Shisa for about 12 years, I think, something like that. We had met through theater because we both have a theater background. I produce and direct and whatnot. And actually, somebody else had optioned the script at some point for a film, but then life got too busy and he wasn't able to make it, and I got to. So essentially, I was looking for a film script to direct. I reached out to Chisa. She said, "Well, I have this. Maybe you would like it." And I read it, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it and all of its juicy deliciousness and how nuanced it was. And so we sat down, and I said, "I want to make it." And though I've directed some short films and other things, and it was really, I think, because we had a relationship and a real trust as people who work in a community together, that she said yes, because otherwise there was really no reason for her to do so. And as far as the casting went, we threw out ideas among us. It was very collaborative. Chisa was part of the process from the beginning through post. And we love the idea of Jason Biggs as the lead. I had seen him on Broadway do some dramatic roles. He had also done some indie films, dramatic roles, and had been on Orange is the New Black. And I thought this would be a great challenge for him. But also, he's somebody who just has such a likable persona. Even when we were shooting, if we were out on the street, people would want to come up and talk to him. They just like him. And I thought for the character Phil, that would be a really great quality to have, something that the audience can relate to and want to know more. Because if you make him sympathetic, I think the film has a deeper resonance when he's dealing with moral issues. And then as far as Ingenue Ellis, I've been a fan of her since the mid 90s. I've been watching her career, and I really wanted her to do the project. At the time, she was busy shooting something else, and we were told no a couple of times, but we persisted because I just knew she was the right person for that role. And luckily, that happened. And then the rest of the cast, many of them are theater people that I had seen. Some of them came into audition, but really, I think I hit the jackpot when it came to the cast overall.
I would agree. It was incredible. And it's interesting what you're saying because I'm thinking of the character of Leslie, and I would think Anjanou Ellis would be like in the top three of if I could have any actress. I'd be
Mhm.
the Jason Biggs one surprised me. It's not someone I would have thought of, but I know he's done a lot of Broadway, so that was really your casting. That good eye.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think Ingenue should be in the conversation with pretty much any role. In fact, a friend of mine on Facebook posted after she was in the Clark Sisters earlier this year, "How do I start the petition for Ingenue Ellis to win all of the awards?" And I thought, absolutely. I screenshotted it and texted it to her because I thought she would find that quite endearing. But yeah, Jason, luckily I've been following his career, and also we have some friends in common, though we didn't know each other. A friend of mine had been the company manager when he did The Graduate many, many moons ago, and loved working with him. A friend of mine played his mom on Orange is the New Black. So we had sort of circled each other. So I'd been thinking about him because I had seen him in so much, and she so loved the idea too. And there are a lot of men who are around 40 who could play that role, but we were just so excited when he said yes. I mean, he was our only offer. We're like, "Jason, we want you." And when he came on board, we were very, very thrilled.
No, he was great. He really landed the role. I was curious about Was there much in the way of improvisation, at least in terms of the dialogue, in some of the scenes, particularly the scenes between the two of them?
No, actually, there wasn't. I mean, there's one or two lines that were dialogued and, I mean, were improv. And one of those is really an important line that Ingenue added something to, which gives a little bit more resonance. But pretty much everything was faithful to the script. Every scene that Chisa wrote is in the movie. Some we did some internal cutting, but everybody really loved Chisa's writing because every character, even if they were on set for only 2 days, had a nice arc, a nice story, something that was full and resonant. And that's just her writing that everybody wanted to really, really stay true to that. And as I said, many of these people have a theater background. So I find that people who are theater actors, not that they don't like to improv or bring themselves to it, they do, but they're a little bit more tied to the words of the writer. It's a little bit more sacrosanct in theater. So, but yeah, no,
Right.
Chisa's writing is really, really what's there.
And though it's not an important line in the film, my favorite line is "This is Peaches." I don't know why.
That's a really great line. Actually, I think that is one that I think the name was changed. I think it was supposed to be Bubbles, but I think Peaches works better.
It does. It was a riot.
Mhm.
That final like third of the film, that's where I can really feel, in a good sense, the origin of the play, when they're just in his apartment together. I was wondering how hard was that to film? It seems like it would have been emotionally exhausting for them, and I was wondering how long that took to finish that whole sequence of the film.
Yeah, that was a huge heavy lift right there, emotion wise, technically, all of that. But Ingenue and Jason are such fantastic actors, and they really trusted each other and were really there and present. You know, sometimes when actors give coverage, when you're not on screen and somebody's saying their lines to you, sometimes they can just phone it in. There was never a moment in this. They were completely in the scene every single second, whether they were on screen or not. And that does take a toll. We shot that over 4 days with two cameras. That was the only way we could get the angles that we wanted and the look that we wanted in a room with two people. Otherwise, I just don't think we would have managed it. But what was also interesting is we shot the first 2 days, then we took 2 days off. We had one off day, and then we shot another scene, and then we did 2 more days. And that was due to some scheduling things. And at first, I wasn't sure if that would work, but it ended up being a blessing because I think if we had done 4 days straight in a row, it just would have been too much.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And in fact, when we came back for that third day, I believe that was the day that we did 11 pages before lunch,
Mm.
which is just unheard of. I mean, they were flying. They were so amazing and wonderful together. I mean, they were every moment, but to get through 11 pages before lunch, we were like, whew, if only every shoot could be like this.
I want to switch gears just
Mhm.
for a second. I know that you've worked on at least one documentary
Mhm.
in the past, and I was curious what your feeling as a director is. Um, Someone could choose to interpret this movie as being kind of a stinging indictment against documentary
Mhm.
filmmakers, which I do not believe was the intention of you or Chisa.
Mhm.
But I was wondering, what did you feel like your responsibility was kind of towards documentary filmmakers? How did that play into your thinking as you were working on this?
Yes, I think it's a lot of things. I mean, that is a big question, and I want to be sensitive because I love documentaries. I love watching them. I've enjoyed them. I mean, some of my favorite filmmakers. I've spent this past weekend revisiting Marlon Riggs' work, who remains one of my favorite filmmakers in the last 50 years. But I also, as an artist, think a lot about our responsibility to each other as humans,
Mhm.
to other artists, how we're going to shoot. Me personally, we didn't do 14-hour days on our shoot. Somebody recently posted on Instagram, it was really great. We never went over a day. And to me, that's part of looking at the other artists who are working with me and respecting them as humans. And I think, you know, as we've talked about this film, it's a film I would want to show in film schools at some point and talk about the ethics. I think it lends to many different conversations around morality, ethics, how we are to one another. And I think we need to have those conversations, like what is right, because it has always been just keep the camera on. But beyond that, it's also, how do you shape the story with integrity? How do you frame something? I had a situation once on another project where it was very clear that the director wanted to make fun of the people who were there by using a music cue. And it just didn't fit. That wasn't the way that we went in and experienced these people. It wasn't the trust that we had created. There was actually no need to make fun of them in this way. And luckily, the composer on that project said, well, if you use that cue, I'm not going to give you my composition, because that just, he felt that it was very out of line with what he was doing. And I was very proud of him in that moment in the discussion, because I think we need to think about that. That doesn't mean that we are so sensitive that we don't show what's really going on. I'm not saying that, but I do think we have to think about these issues. And as artists, like, how do we cannibalize other people's lives for entertainment or for money? And those are really big questions. I'm not saying that we have the answers, but I hope that the subject opens up conversation around that, both with filmmakers and people making art, but also with audiences. What do we experience and what do we expect?
Have you actually screened your film with a documentary filmmaker, or have responses from them? I'm just curious how it's played to them.
A couple have seen it and have really enjoyed it. I will say I was at an event where I randomly met a very established documentary filmmaker and his wife, who's also very involved in documentary filmmaking. And our conversation around this did get a little testy, because their viewpoint is you never put the camera down ever. And I said, and I would bring up different instances, and they were just like, never, it's a hard line. And you're crazy to think that there would ever be something that's not a hard line.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's a tough call. I mean, I think also too, with everybody having cell phones at this point, this is another thing. Do you film something or do you jump in? What is, and I've seen this on the street, actually. Shortly after making this film, there was a teenager getting beaten by a bunch of other teenagers, and somebody was filming it, but a couple of us adults ran over and were like, please, you know, stop, let's break it up. I don't know what's going on, but this kid on the ground should not be hit anymore. So, yeah.
Wow. So when I first watched this, I watched it towards the end of February, almost 3 months to the day before before George Floyd was killed. And you know, I was aware of the choking death of Eric Garner by police, but I wasn't really thinking about that at the end of the film, where there's that sequence between Jason and Anjanu, where he's trying to stop her from leaving, and he starts choking her. And I watched it again just the other night, and that just really hit me very hard. And I was curious, since this has all come out, have you and Chissa, or you and the actors, had any discussions about this? Is this something that has kind of taken on a new significance for you as a filmmaker, as part of your film?
There's a lot, I think, in the film that's taken on added significance since the really sad murder of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, all of these really, really tragic deaths. And it's been interesting because even our crew, who are the loveliest people and really believe in this film, they watched it again recently, and even they feel differently about it. We had a cast and crew screening a while back at IFC Center. It was like, oh, nobody's seen it, let's put it up. And thank goodness we got to do it in a movie theater before the pandemic hit, which we're really grateful to have seen it in that way. But now there's so much I think that resonates, and it just speaks to the nuanced understanding of life that Chisa has as a writer and what she put in there, because it is like that saying of an onion, so many layers that you can peel back,
Mhm.
and they change. And it has been interesting how this film at other festivals is hitting people in this moment, because I think it does speak to this violence. It does speak to Black Lives Matter, to white saviorhood, to all the things that we're grappling with as a country, and hopefully opens up conversations around it. In fact, one of our team members said to me that a friend of hers who watched it said, I never felt comfortable while watching the film.
Mm.
And that to me was the whole point of creating this film, that there are two ways to make people feel uncomfortable. One is the story, and I think the content is there to make people question themselves and our way in the world. And two is the form. This film doesn't necessarily follow a 3-act structure. And so therefore, as many people have said, I didn't know where it was going. And it's like, that's the point. We don't want you ahead of the film and what's happening at any point. And I think those two things keep us on the hook as a viewer, at least I hope they do, so that you're constantly questioning your own actions in this world.
Yeah, that's great. Ah, gosh, I'm just taking in your answer right now. Sorry. Um, one of the fun things that I always get to do when hanging out with the filmmakers is invariably we'll just start talking about other things, and I'll get to hear one of the directors or writers' favorite stories about the film. So since we don't get to hang out like that for a couple of days, I'm just going to cheat and say, hey, what's a favorite story you have to tell about the making of this film?
Oh, there are so many.
I know I'm putting you on the
You
spot. Yeah.
are, but I'm gonna do one and a half.
Okay.
One was we were shooting in Harlem. This is when we were shooting at the liquor store, and that day we shot in 2 locations. So we had wrapped there. Jason had been sent to the second location, and a police officer came up to us. He was a young man, and he's like, "I heard Jason Biggs was here. I needed to know, do I look like Eugene Levy? Everybody always tells me I look like Eugene Levy." And I was so sad Jason didn't get to tell him that yes, indeed, he does look like Eugene Levy. So that was sort of a favorite story. Another one would be, and this, well, I guess I'll tell this. I had the worst case of food poisoning on a day when we shot outdoors. One of the most emotional scenes. It's between Malcolm and Phil, so Jason and Niall. And it's the scene where Niall asks Jason to save his life. So asks the character to help him. And it's really this tender, beautiful scene. But I had to try and keep it together for about 7 hours as I was dying with food poisoning. I was totally fine the next day. And of course, we had the on-set photographer. That was one of the days that they came. So every photo, people were like, why do you look so stressed, Lanny? You look so stressed, like just so intent. I was like, I was just trying to keep it together. And then I see all these filmmakers, Greta Gerwig, and perfect on-set behind the scenes photos. And I look at mine, I'm like, well, at least on that day, I was very, very, I looked very angry, but I wasn't. I was very happy to be on set. And the truth is, the shoot was such a joy that if I knew going into that day I was going to have food poisoning, I'd say, bring it on. I'm ready to go back and do it again, because they were so lovely and great. And nobody knew except our line producer. So luckily I was able to keep that to myself.
Are those the behind the scene photos I see with your press materials? Some of those?
Some of them, a couple of them are, yeah. So if I have this really anguished look, that's one. And then the other
I
funny
think I
part,
saw that one.
yeah, where it's like, and then there's this other day that we did press photos, and the day before there had been a snowstorm in New Jersey out of the blue, and we had to last minute book hotels near where we were. So of course they come in, we're all bedraggled, wearing the same clothes we were wearing the day before. I was like, oh my goodness. So I just let the press photos behind the scenes go, because no control over those.
Oh man, fun
Yeah.
times.
Mm-hmm.
Look, thank you so much. This has been great. I really, really enjoyed this movie. Enjoyed it actually more every time I see it. just what a great film. And I appreciate your willingness to be part of our festival, even though we have to do it online
Mhm.
this year. And I hope we get to meet in person someday.
Kent, I would love that. And thank you so much. We're very honored to be part of Stony Brook Film Festival. And honestly, when you sent your lovely email to me just talking about the film, it meant so much to, to receive that sort of feedback. That's not just like, we want to accept your film, but here's why. I really appreciate that. It's helped us, keep going as the world is changing around us. But thank you for this opportunity to screen with you. We really, really appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.